Everybody put your hands together for Rich Cardillo! The first thing I did after I boarded the airplane was sneak into the tiny little bathroom and remove entirely my religious habit that was drenched in sweat. It's August of 1983, and I had just stamped my one-way ticket to go and be a Catholic missionary in Lima, Peru. 5 years previously, I could not get rid of these strange feelings I had, so I decided to dedicate my life to Jesus and enter a Catholic monastery and take a vow of celibacy. It wasn't all for spiritual reasons. Most of it was to hide out. I knew I was gay. I was so desperately afraid of being gay that I figured if I worked hard enough and had this vow of celibacy, I could pray away the gay. Wasn't working. Everything changed by that time. Even my name changed. My name's Richard Cardillo. From the day I entered the monastery, I became Brother Mark. So the outside changed, the inside just wasn't changing, and I felt this wasn't a phase. So I went to my superiors and I said, I need harder work. And that's when they made the decision to assign me and transfer me to be a Catholic missionary in Lima, Peru. That's why I was on that plane. My first assignment when I got down there was in a remote fishing village about 100 kilometers outside of Lima. And within a month of landing there, I was wrangled into starting an orphanage for the children who were coming from the war-torn provinces for a better life in Lima. And the woman who did the wrangling for me was a woman by the name of Gonzala. Gonzala was the consummate community organizer. She was amazing. And I asked her to keep her eyes on me in case I was offending or stepping on the toes of anybody's culture. And she said, well, Hermano Marcos, now that you mention it, I look at you greeting all the women with their babies in their arms, and you're like an American politician, cooing with the babies, asking their names. Don't ask the names of those babies. And I said, why not? She said 50% of the babies born in this village die before the age of 1. Women don't name their babies until they know those babies are going to flourish. Lesson learned. About a year after that, I had the most intense health scare of my entire life. I contracted cholera. There was a vicious cholera epidemic raging through the country, and I was not immune, and I immediately started wasting away to nothing. In only 2 days, I lost 14 pounds of liquid weight loss. My skin was getting tighter. I was getting jaundice in the eyes. I was literally wasting away. I think every storyteller has their requisite poop story. So I guess this is mine, but I can't tease out much humor from it. The American Embassy found out very quickly that I was not well, and they sent an ambulance and took me to the best clinic in the capital city. And within an hour of putting the IV drip into my arm, I started recuperating. Within 2 days, I gained back all of that weight, and within 5 days, I was given permission to go back to the village that I loved and do the work that I wanted. Gonzala was waiting for me too. She, like I told you, was this consummate community organizer. More than that, she was a consummate community builder. She would make these cakes for all the kids in the village. And she'd decorate the tops with something that was pertinent to them. So if there was a kid that liked music, she'd stencil in panpipes and a guitarra for these kids. So I could not wait to get back to this village that I loved. And I showed up and I was given a hero's welcome. Music, food, dancing, it was great. And an hour after I got there, I got the ugly, devastating news that 45 children from the village died of cholera. I crumbled. I couldn't understand why. Why did they die? Why am I alive? I sought out Gonzala and I was crying to her, bawling, saying, this is so unfair. It doesn't make sense. I should have been the one, not them. Why? And she said, es fácil, porque eres lo que eres. Y somos lo que somos. She said, Rich, hermano Marcos, it's easy because you are who you are and we are who we are. And that's when my privilege punched me right in the face. I was alive because of my whiteness, my maleness, my country of origin, my hiding out. And I couldn't understand. I asked Gonzalo, what can I do to make sense of this? She said, face it, hermano Marcos, these kids didn't have a prayer. Not a prayer. But you can keep their memory alive. Dedicate your life to being a voice for those that have no voice. And I went home that night, and I made the only solemn vow in my life that I was able to keep. And I dedicated myself to being a voice for those who had no voice. I don't care if it was because of poverty or race or country of origin. I don't care if it was because of gender expression. I was going to advocate for those that never had advocates for them. They teach you this phrase when you're a missionary. When you're working and being of service to people in a foreign land, always go where you're very, very needed, but not really wanted. And only stay until you're very, very wanted, but not really needed. I knew it was time to go back to the United States, leave the monastery, live my authentic life, and work up here advocating for those that had no voice. In 2015, I was lucky enough to go back to Peru for the first time. The Ministry of Education had contracted with me to spend 10 days in the country creating an anti-bullying program and go around the country implementing it. And I was determined to look up Gonzala, and I found her. She was living in Lima. She was married now with children and grandchildren of her own. And we reminisced for the day, and we had a wonderful time. And I asked her, did you ever know at that time that I was gay? She said, I always thought that, but I wanted to respect your desire to remain hidden. In fact, Richard, remember when I told you about those women who didn't name their babies? I said, yeah. She said, Hermano Marcos wasn't ready to flourish. Richard Cardillo is ready to flourish. And I was so grateful to this woman who taught me so much. The next morning I woke up and I had to go up to Iquitos on a plane. And all of a sudden, there was a cake box waiting for me at my door. And I knew it was one of Gonzala's cakes. And I opened it up. And sure enough, indeed it was one of Gonzala's cakes, decorated on the top beautifully with an amazing rainbow flag. And the note inside was even better. Sigue dejando la voz para los 45 y la voz por los que no tienen voz. Keep living your life in the memory of our 45 children. And always be a voice for those that don't have a voice. And that was my solemn vow, not then and now. Same as it ever was. Same as it ever was. Thank you.